Now, the app itself is fairly straightforward. It's basically just an app that has all kinds of options for wallpapers and people to choose from. I mean, personally, I never really understood the appeal of like having custom wallpapers through an app. You can just kind of get an image and then set it as a phone background. But yeah, I use my phone background I got here. It's very cool. Focus in. Yeah, very normal phone background there. Dude, I don't like my phone 70 times. But and then I just get apps. Now, one of the biggest benefits of panels was basically artists would be able to submit their work, and then it would be a split revenue share system where the artist actually gets paid for their time. So the source of new talent gets to use their platform because they're being paid. So this sounds really, really good. What's the problem? The problem is when you download high quality versions of any of these wallpapers, you need to pay for a premium subscription.
Let's get it done snappy.
All right, get it over with.
Fuck it over! Thanks for support.
Too fast for you.
No, it's always Noah.
Move it over, Alex. White flag. Glorious. All right, keep them coming. You're a fireman.
Brilliant.
Where's the grind? Knock it off. Cross it back. Go. Looking good, love. We have superiority. Push through. Glorious. Leave the enemies to me. Looking good, love.
Gonna blast them into next week.
Turn up the
See me
light.
in action, Mimi? Sure I did, Santa. You look great. Hit 'em over and over.
Don't think this is the norm.
Is this like a rare thing?
Wait for a moment. Using that device should allow us to proceed.
Push this thing here and...
Boop, 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 beep. And then here and...
Hop, hop, hop! Let's get it done snappy.
That was over way too soon.
Hear that, Noah? Lance wants something a bit meatier. Gonna blast them into next week. Oh yeah, you see me in action, Mimi? Sure I did, Santa. You look great.
Topographical info update.
Gonna blast them into next week. They seem a little easy. Hey, fry up and sleep.
That was over way too soon.
Hear that, Noah? Lance wants something a bit meatier.
Well, we've been found.
So, when's the battle happening? Oops, they found us. Sorry, buddy. Did you hear that, Mimi? Sure I did, Santa. You look great.
We've been spotted. Way too soon.
Hear that, Noah? Lance wants something a bit meatier.
Mia, you all right?
I just got a glimpse of hope. Guess I can hold on a while longer. One more win for me.
We're just getting warmed up. Is that what I think it
Gonna
is?
blast them into next week.
Don't let your guard down. That was over way too soon.
Hear that, Noah? Lance wants something a bit meatier. Come on, it's just a little further to the oasis. Keep it together. Just let me dive in. Nice and cool. Favorite clock.
All right then. My turn. You too. Don't happen every day. Yeah!
Wow! You muppet! Never do that again!
Come on. You're already soaking wet anyway. What difference does it make?
The difference is, you're an asshole. Got snuffing difference. Oh, I've got war in my ears now.
Staying here, are you?
I've got something to take care of. I'll send it to you now.
A map?
From the survey branch. Annihilation events occur frequently here.
Annihilation events? You mean?
Look. It happens here too. Given our route, we should take the safest way possible.
Very cautious of you.
It's my duty to be.
Thank you.
Sure.
Ooh, that felt great. How are you feeling, Neo? Great, since I cooled off in the lake. Glad to hear it. I worked up a chonkin' appetite with all that moving about. I'm sure we still have some rations left. Grab some after you've rested. This is turning into quite the leisurely pleasure cruise, isn't it? Hey man, I seem to remember you agreeing to have a rest at the Oasis too. Sure, I adjudged it necessary to take a short break and check the route. Tyon, come on, take a dip, cool off that overheated cranium of yours. I don't think so. Even in a highly open desert locale with good sight lines like this, we must maintain a lookout at all times. Yeah, I guess you're right. Hey, thanks, I can go on because of you. In fact, you've helped me out a lot of times since we joined forces, Tyon. Yeah, dude, if it wasn't for you, I don't know if I'd still be here in one piece. That's what I'm here for, to determine the best course of action, tactically and strategically. Hey Tyon, do you think you could tell us the way out of this desert, then? Naturally. We bear further south into the Ribby Flats. Sounds like another massive hike on foot. If we've got so much walking through the wilds ahead of us, why don't we make camp here for the day? Could probably do with topping up the water supply too, I reckon. Not a terrible line of reasoning, however. Tyon, we've been hiking through a wasteland for a while. You need to rest the same as the rest of us. Didn't you admit as much just now? And what's more, I'm starving too. Ha ha ha, outta girl. My nana's tummy hear someone talking about food. Riku, Manana, where did you get to? Went on little search for tasty treats. Since we now at Lush Oasis, more cells even tastier than pack rations can be had. Tickle of taste buds, make chuckle in heart and soul, good for morale, good for mood. So Manana will keep eyes to ground in search of ever tastier treats. So you're gonna be cooking something up for us, huh? Correct. Muchly. Manana's a total diva when it comes to cuisine, I can confirm. But planned cuisine take 2 hours to make, and meanwhile, please endure hunger with patience like well-behaved soldiers. What the spark? 2 hours? Nothing's worth that kind of wait. Come on, all you need to do is chuck a few ingredients in a pot. Is there really that much to it? Meh, such unkind and untrue words. Friends think food is nothing more than fuel for furless meat sacks. Such rotten attitude. Manana can offer incredible tasty cuisine, not simply chuck stuff in a pot then deliver unceremoniously into a mouth hole. Manana, would you like us to help you out with the cooking? Then maybe it would get to our mouth holes a bit faster. Meh, acceptable. But if friends want to help Manana in cooking duties, certain boundary must be set. Tasting is 100% purview of Manana.
It's time to pay attention, because I'm about to tell you the news that the loving elites don't want you to know. And it just might possibly be the most bullish news of all time. Money printing around the globe is at an all-time high, and if history is any guide, we could see Bitcoin skyrocket by 2,000%. That is right, 2,000%. This is the financial reality that's about to wake a lot of people up. We've got the Fed cutting rates. Are they bailing out the Treasury? Is that even possible? Not to mention China has fired up the money printer. And would you just look at the calendar? It's all happening, coincidentally, just days away from October. You're gonna want to stay until the finish, because what I'm about to cover might just shock the entire world. I'm Rustin Peace, head of news at Simply Bitcoin, and we are about to deliver some of the most bullish news of all time. Better buckle up, because it's time to send it!
You have this 80 IQ guy who's just looking at the market volatility and saying, I don't care if it goes up or down, I'm stacking sats every single day. And he's murdering the market. So My hat's off to the ADIQers because they're just crushing it. They're making fools out of everybody on Wall Street, and for good reason.
So here we are again, folks. If you thought we were done with this money printing madness, you thought wrong. The world's central banks have decided, screw it, let's print more. And the US is printing, China is printing, Europe is probably setting up new ink factories as we speak. And while you can't front run El Salvador or Bhutan anymore, those guys already stacked their sets. But guess what? There are 105 other countries with money printers working overtime. And Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin is about to swallow up that liquidity like a vacuum on overdrive. You want to front run that? Grab some Bitcoin while the rest of the world prints their fiat money into oblivion. All right, now let's get to our friends at the Fed. Jerome, don't worry, it's fine. Powell just hit us with a 50 basis point rate cut. Now, why would he do that? Because according to him and Janet Yellen, the economy is strong, unemployment is low, and inflation's under control. Sure, Jerome, and I'm the Queen of England. The reality is the U.S. government is drowning in debt. They've racked up $1 trillion interest tab for the first time in history. And Uncle Sam doesn't have the cash to pay for it. So what does the Fed do? They cut rates, bail out the Treasury, and act like everything's fine. Meanwhile, the dollar's losing value faster than... Well, enough. Just check out this new clip from the legend Greg Foss. He explains how in 5 years, the U.S. national debt will be $60 trillion.
There is a potential for the U.S. debt machine to grind to a halt where an auction fails. And then it's like the bug hitting your windshield, right? It's like, oh my, hey, I thought I was in good shape, and all of a sudden, it's a calamity. So the people that do know, they don't want to acknowledge that this 35 trillion of debt. Now, this is so funny because in 5 years, that 35 trillion of debt, just by pure mathematics, is going to be 60 trillion.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And that will equate to 170% US GDP. And as Luke Groman points out, and others, no nation in history that spends more money on their interest expense than their military expenditures, which the U.S. just currently passed, where interest expense on the debt is only going to go higher, and military expending is going to struggle to maintain its current level. No nation that has experienced that in history has not failed. So on the one hand,
where is this in the credit market?
The credit markets are all subordinate to the treasury market. So this is where I say there's enough buyers of the current treasury market that still believe that that is your quintessential risk-free asset. There's enough buyers as long as the U.S. prints money to fill the gap that exists, because you can't possibly have enough buyers for 35 trillion of debt going to 60 trillion. They don't exist. You need a buyer of last resort. Who is that? The U.S. Treasury, okay? It's that simple. And as long as we understand that QE infinity is baked into the math, then you can accept, okay, I'm worried about next year's bonus. And I'm fairly confident between now and next year, this thing is not going to go off the rails. Can I say between now and 20 years from now, where Mr. Saylor is still confident that Bitcoin will exist in parallel with the US dollar? Certainly, I hope that he's right, but I can't see out 20 years like that, and there is a possibility that we get a cataclysmic event. But I trust me when I say, if the USA fails, I wouldn't want to be in pretty much any other country in the world, because the trickle-down effects from the USA failing are going to be just so painful to everybody else in the world.
And you know who's been watching this whole circus play out? The Bitcoin holders. Because they know that when the money printer goes burr, Bitcoin goes up. And what is happening right now isn't just a little rally. We are in the beginning of a money printing super cycle. And China, of course, they don't want to be left out of the fun. They just dropped multiple rate cuts and launched stimulus packages that make you wonder if their central bank is trying to outprint everyone else. It's like watching a race to the bottom, except instead of a trophy, the winner gets hyperinflation. Now, what's China going to do with all that freshly printed cash? Are they going to invest in bonds? Nope. Gold? Maybe, but even gold's not immune. The smart money, the hard money, that's going into Bitcoin. And if you want to be on the right side of the global liquidity surge, you stack sats, period. All right, now let's talk some numbers, because historically, Bitcoin's Q4 has returned on average 88%. And if we hit that again, we're looking at Bitcoin close to 120K by the end of the year. But hold on, because this year isn't like any other one. I mean, this year we got the Bitcoin ETFs rolling out. We've got FTX paying back billions. We've got rate cuts fueling the fire. Add in elections and a political circus, and Bitcoin is set up for a parabolic move that could take it past 100K, and pretty easy. And what if the stars align just right? What if we hit that 2,000% move like we did in previous cycles? We could be looking at Bitcoin worth millions. Don't believe me? Well, I've got some numbers that are going to blow your mind coming up. But before that, remember, history doesn't always repeat itself, but it sure as hell does rhyme. You hear people calling Bitcoin digital gold, and they're wrong. Bitcoin is way better than gold. Gold tried to be an uncheatable ledger, but it failed because you can always dig up more. Bitcoin is actually uncheatable. A global ledger with a hard cap. You can't make more, you can't fake it, and it's becoming the ultimate store of value. Even BlackRock's own head of digital assets, yes, BlackRock, is saying Bitcoin is a global decentralized asset with no counterparty risk. When you got the big dogs of finance seeing the light, you know the game has changed. The narrative is clear. Bitcoin is now the ultimate risk-off asset. It's the global reserve for a world that's losing faith in fiat.
How hard is the sell when you think about the retail investor base that can get into this? If you're trying to tell them it's digital gold, that the volatility is still so high, and many people don't understand exactly what it is at the end of the day. Is it something that will eventually be used as more payment methods moving forward across different parts of the world? Is it something that you hold and never sell, right? How do you then make that case to a generation of people who have not gotten into this asset?
Sure. Well, when you think about Bitcoin, we think of it primarily as an emerging global monetary alternative, right? It is a scarce, global, decentralized, non-sovereign asset, and it is an asset which has no country-specific risk, has no traditional counterparty risk. So these are interesting properties when you think of it from an investment perspective, particularly in a world where there's growing concerns over money printing, currency debasement risks, political, fiscal, sustainability challenges in the U.S. or elsewhere. And so that resonates, frankly, with a lot of investors. It goes back to what we talked about earlier with the risk-on piece. It confuses investors when people talk about it as risk-on, because based on the properties that I just described, you would think of it as risk-off. And that's where I think
it has a marketing problem.
So you could say that. And so, the reality is there's probably 2 or 3 things a year that happen typically that actually impact the fundamental value of Bitcoin. This year, I would argue there's been 4. But that makes it hard to write daily stories, right? And so you see this instinct to kind of point to whatever's happening in equities or unemployment or jobs numbers or manufacturing, which really has no connection to Bitcoin.
We are entering the money printing super cycle. Over 15 trillion has been printed globally since that thing that happened a few years ago, and we're not done yet. Central banks are going all in on liquidity. The result? Bitcoin will absorb all that excess cash like a sponge. Nothing can stop this train. Nothing. Bitcoin just may be entering the prophetic super cycle, where we break out of the traditional 4-year cycle into the upside. Anything's possible. You've got institutional money pouring in, ETFs approved, countries adopting it, and not to mention the fiat system is going to shit in real time. You want to know what comes next? A financial revolution that will melt faces. We're talking about Bitcoin potentially hitting $1 million or more, and it's not just some fantasy. The math is here, the liquidity is here, and the narrative is locked in. This right here, right now, is the moment that Bitcoin was made for. We're about to give you the numbers verifying that you're probably just not bullish enough. But before we do, look at our lives.
I gotta pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers in this racket.
If you're enjoying the show so far, don't forget to like and subscribe this video. Give us a pap. Help us spread the sound money gospel while we take a second to recognize our sponsors, the Bitcoin Way. Guys, being that we live in clown world, it's pretty easy to understand the why Bitcoin, but over at the first wallet node to inheritance planning to everything Bitcoin sovereignty, they got you covered.
This is where he's gonna build his chicken coop. Nate and Jen have 8 little chicks for him that they're gonna hold on to till they have feathers. Still no girlfriend, still no taxes, still no plates on the truck, still not planning to insulate. Bro's probably fucked. He's been scratching butt, doing push-ups, and all the various things. And that's the update I got for you guys today. Hope you have a good day. This is where he's gonna build his chicken coop. Nate and Jen have 8 little chicks for him that they're gonna hold on to till they have feathers. Still no girlfriend, still no taxes, still no plates on the truck, still not planning to insulate.
Yeah, what's up?
I wanted to buy this from you guys.
The rating system?
It was on the shelf over there.
Oh, this is just to show people the rating system?
Yeah.
So what's up? I'm a little confused here.
Well, I'm a collector.
Oh.
And that is a very rare item. So I was.
So no, this is just actually something we got from like corporate. Like I bought these on a regular basis. These I hate to say I can't sell.
Oh, you got a couple of them.
Yeah, I've got a couple
Yeah.
that I put in each section.
If you have some more in the back, I could just like pay you under the table and kind of take it from there.
I just as well just get you one for free. Like
For real?
I don't need to charge you anything. I'll see if I have any extras. Actually, you know what? I bet it's in marketing because that's part of the marketing requirement.
For real? Okay.
Yeah.
You just looked like you're saying that if you did have an extra one, you would have given it to me?
I just given you the cover art and maybe giving you like an empty case to kind of put it in there with it. But yeah.
Well, that's really nice of you, sir.
I'm going to order some more. That way, if you want to pop in like maybe in about a month or a couple weeks, I might have some extras then at that point.
I will definitely do that.
Sure, man.
You guys buy gaming consoles here?
Yeah.
This is the LGBT Wii. It's got everything to it. It is the limited edition one, of course.
No.
They didn't make too many of these.
Let me try to scan it.
No.
The GameStop doesn't even know about it because I really wanted the back room. What do you want for it?
I was thinking like $100 cash.
Can't do $100 cash.
What's your offer?
Hickok 45 here. Welcome to the Hickok 45 Talks channel, where I talk too much and I go too long on these. I'm sorry. Good thing it's just one topic. Wow, it'd be 2 hours long, wouldn't it? So I am not a financial advisor, as I often remind you. I think I have to say that. I don't know. But yeah, this was a little bit about that and, preparation, and some of you that are not 80 years old yet, might want to think about. And I got a comment. I copied and pasted them. I think they were on I've had them for a while. I think these comments were on a Sunday video where I talked about investing or something. Maybe it was in another talks. I don't know. But anyway, I thought this was a good contrast. 2 different comments from 2 different people. And this guy says, I guess in response to my talking about, saving or something. Years ago, I started investing. I didn't make much money, but I spent less than I made and invested the difference. Over the years, I learned all I could and kept investing. Sometimes I'd share with my kids, hey, I made this money, wow. They would ask, what are you going to do? What are you going to buy? I told them nothing. They said, well, what's the point? I'm investing in my future retirement. That's what he would say to them when he was younger. He said, now I am 72, still invested, haven't punched a clock in 11 years. Well, life is good, he said. Hadn't punched a clock in 11 years. And that puts it at, 60, 61. So he retired kind of early. And like you say, he didn't make a lot of money, but he spent less than he made, and he invested the difference. And again, it's not rocket science, right? I started out reading a book, Investing for Dummies. I think it was the first thing I read. And then I got all the magazines. I read all the easy stuff and everything, and a lot of articles back in around 2000, and got into it. And I got to that point where I had learned just enough to be dangerous, but then I continued with it, and learned a lot more now about how silly some of the things are. And early on, I was basing it on past performance on mutual funds. I've had a great track record the last 5 years. Yeah, that's what I want. And I realized that's not necessarily what you want to do. But anyway, it's not hard at all. So when he says invest, I think there's still a lot of people. How do you invest? Who do I go? Where do I go to a broker? Who do I try? Well, just read a little bit on it, and you know, it's, set up a Fidelity account. I mean, if you don't have a 401k or a Schwab or Vanguard, you got three of those main brokerages. These are signed up just like setting up a YouTube account, basically, and then you just send money in and put it in whatever fund you want, and it's not rocket science, just a good fund. And if you're not sure what to do, put it in frickin' Walmart or something, or it's just some basic S&P fund. It's the difference between your decision about what you invest in is like minuscule compared with the decision whether or not to invest. Yeah, there you're losing lots of money by not investing. Inflation eats it up totally. But what you invest in, other than you do something crazy, but just some good solid companies, preferably in a fund, probably and you're fine as long as you can get the market results, the overall market, you're fine. But there's other comment from another guy. He says, and I won't give names or usernames, but I just turned 62. I lived the fast life, fast cars, fast bikes, fast women, and fast drinking. And now there's no way that I can retire. I've been mostly self-employed, and if I had to do it over again, I would have changed everything about my life and saved for the future. I would have found a good job and a decent woman and settled down, and now I could be retired. Well, he's 62, yeah. But when my obituary is posted in the paper, that's the day I retire. So, he says he's got to work till he dies. So you young guys that read this, think about what you're going to do when you get old, because you will, and it comes fast. So I thought those were two interesting, contrasting comments, and interesting that the one fellow retired at 61, it looks like, and the other guy that's fast cars and fast life, he just turned 62. See, if he had done what the other guy did, he would have been retired for a year. Right? So, really, I won't belabor this point, but that's one of the things that, the literature talks about, and people comment said they've kind of gotten away from, to some extent, using the term retirement. You're not working towards just retiring on the front porch in a rocker. You're working towards financial independence. And I think if I were teaching finance and whatever, that kind of thing at middle school or high school, I would try to almost never use the word retire in retirement. And I know some people do that online. They call it like financial independence, FI, whatever. So we're all trying to, the ideal goal is financial independence. Am I recording? Yeah, good. Whenever that comes, it's 61, 51, 71, 81, to where you are financially independent. And that one of the ultimate goals of everybody, when you have a fantasy, you think, wow, wouldn't it be cool to be financially independent, or what's the other phrase for that? Independently wealthy is what I was trying to think of. We use just, to be independently wealthy, not have to go to this stupid job or to do this or whatever, independently wealthy. Well, that's really what you're working towards. You're working towards being financially independent, independently wealthy enough to be independent. That's really what that means. If you're 40 or 30 or 50, whatever it is, and you're, I don't want to go to work, it's Monday morning, I hate this job or whatever, that's the fantasy that pops up. Being financially independent, independently wealthy. Well, don't think Bezos or Gates. Just think having enough money where you could do whatever you wanted today, and next week, and next year. You can set your own schedule. You might not be able to buy a $200,000 yacht, but you can do pretty much what you've always done, and maybe some other nice things, and not have to do anything you don't want to do. That's independently wealthy. That is real wealth, when you can do whatever the heck you want. And that is valuable. And so that can be reached. It needs to be reached, unless you're planning to work and have a boss until you're at 75 or 80 or 90. So, but anyway, those two fellows, I guess, pretty well sum it up. Yeah, how it goes. So that's my little lesson for today. I'm like a reformed smoker. I was not so good at this back in, I don't know, in my 20s, maybe 30s, but I got better at it. I got smarter about it. And I'm just enough of a nerd using spreadsheets and things that I set up a budget, and it's not that hard. And, keep it simple. Just figure out. A lot of people don't even know their net worth. They couldn't even tell you what they're worth, which is kind of simple. All you do is subtract everything you owe from your assets, right? Your bank account, what you have in your 401k, if you have real estate, what's it worth? Everybody should do that about once a year, I think. What are you worth? I don't do it on paper, I guess, but yeah, write down what you're worth, what's your net worth. That'll tell you when you can be financially independent, how close you are, to that. You got calculators, retirement calculators, whatever they're called, that will tell you, when you're going to have X amount of dollars, if it's under reasonable growth and that kind of thing, and you know how much you need to live on, and then how much you need. Basic rule is, so there are different formulas, but was it 25 times your income? If you got 25 times your income saved, you could probably retire, whatever. Everybody uses that $1 million as a kind of a baseline. If you get to $1 million, that means you can use the 4% rule, which is really not a rule. It'll stay intact probably, for 20 or 30 years. That $1 million will, if you pull 4% from it each year, okay? Or at least it will not evaporate. It'll last you about 30 years, okay? So through your retirement, if you pull 4%, generally speaking, okay? And so that tells you, how much you want to live on. You want to live on can you live on $40,000 plus your Social Security, whatever that might be, a couple thousand a month or something? I don't know. I mean, you can just run the numbers. It's pretty simple. If you have $1 million, that would give you 4% be 40,000. Say you got even 3,000 Social Security. So what's that? Another 30, 40. So you could have 60, 70,000, 75,000, whatever, $1,000 a month if you have $1 million in the bank. Now, if you save up $1 million and then you live on it and try and pull out 70,000 a year or something, guess what? You've got about 4 or 5 years, and then you're broke. So you've got to think in terms of percentages you want to pull from the money. So whatever money you've got in the bank, ask yourself if you're 30, if you're 40, if you're 50 right now, you've got $300,000 saved or $200,000 saved. Well, just your calculator. What's 4% of that? Could I retire tomorrow? I don't know. What's 4% of $200,000 or $273,000 I have saved? And you can figure in your real estate, I guess you have to, but what's 4% of that? Oh, okay. It's only $15,000 or it's $10,000. I guess I can't retire yet. Yeah, just run the numbers and don't fret about it. Just save and try to be smart about things and work hard. Work hard. But anyway, I thought those two comments were pretty interesting and it provided a contrast and how we live. And then the last point again is don't think about it as retirement. I never think about being retired. I guess I'm not really, but I don't know what is retirement. I think of it in terms of being financially independent. It's for the last, 10 years.
We use radicchio in this dish, which kind of sounds like a Harry Potter spell. We chop that up and toss it with an orange vinaigrette, then we throw in some clementines and a pinch of salt. On the bottom of the plate is a mango puree with galangal, which tastes similar to ginger. I know people are gonna bring up in the comments about the cutting board. You see how I'm using a yellow one now? Well, yeah, at the start when I was using those little white ones, this was the first shift I used them, but they slide around too much even with a wet paper towel underneath, so I got rid of them. We sear our tuna on one side, but for one of these dishes, the guest specifically asked for it to be seared on two sides. We place the tuna on top of the puree, and then the salad goes right in the center. On top of the salad is a Comte French cheese, and then we have pickled mustard seeds, which are gonna rest right in the middle. All that's left now is to add a pinch of salt on top of the tuna and garnish with a few microgreens. And that's how we make our $80 tuna salad. Okay, that's a joke. It's not $80. Chill out.
That was spectacular.
And I was the MVP. You were all thinking it.
If there's anything worse than a limousine liberal, Morton said, it's a Gulfstream environmentalist, Michael Crichton.
So why does old money support the left? I'm bringing back the old money series on Analyzing Finance with Nick, because this is a question that I've been asked a lot by viewers, both in in real life and through comments on this channel, because a lot of people seem to be baffled that the richest and most powerful people in the world are often aligned with what would be perceived as socialist or politically progressive causes that on paper at least seem to undermine their relative status and position. However, what if I told you actually is the other way around, where progressive politics and highly progressive taxation enable their relative power and allow old money to stay on top rather than cut them down with everybody else? First thing is there's a lot of non-economic reasons why some members of old money may support the left. First, a lot of it could be just youthful idealism, which is a lot of reason why people support left-wing politics in general. And if you are from old money and don't have to deal with practical financial limitations that people in the middle classes tend to do, you can hold on to a lot of these more idealistic left-wing progressive views for a lot longer because there's no economic consequences for not doing so. There's also intellectual fashions and trends. If you live in a place like San Francisco or Hollywood, it's socially unacceptable to be aligned with the political right, and many people will just become a product of their environment in terms of their voting patterns and political ideologies, even if it's against their own interests. And then on an individual issue by issue basis, there may be personal or family reasons why people will take a certain side in that issue, and that could affect their politics as well. The other thing is also on the social side, a lot of people prioritize social issues over economic issues, especially those who are more wealthy and already have more money than what to do with. They don't really care much about economic issues because they'll be fine either way. And so they may prioritize social issues because of either empathy or to legitimize certain vices that they have, and social acceptability is really the only downside to abusing such vices, whereas for middle and lower class people, there are major negative economic consequences for pursuing a similar lifestyle. So with that out of the way, I want to get into the hard economics of why the old money tends to support the left. And originally, they didn't. In fact, really, if you go back to when the modern left-right dichotomy began in the French Revolution, the right wing literally was the old money and the protected established interests. And this really happened to be most of the case until the world wars happened. But in Europe, there had been several revolutions, whether it was the French Revolution, 1848, and later the Bolshevik Revolution, which scared a lot of the old money and the nobility to the point that if they wanted to keep anything, they felt like they needed to give something to the lower classes, because it's better to have maybe a little bit less and provide social safety nets than be killed in a revolution. In fact, some of the most old money and patrician leaders in the Western world, such as Otto von Bismarck and Franklin Delano Roosevelt, ironically, were the ones who were the most aggressive in expanding the social safety net, with such as Germany.
Ask you something? It's special, isn't it? Your blade, I mean. Sometimes one part of it glows. Why is that?
Oh, you can tell. That's amazing.
It's hard not to.
Ah, right.
Is it a secret?
No, I can tell you.
Okay. Where's this going?
Noah, my man. He's still playing around with that little toy.
Have you considered a knock-on weapon? You might actually get somewhere with that.
Oi! You deaf or what, Noah? Garble? Noah, this is bad. Not even a peep. Don't need to pay us any attention.
Oh, please. I wasn't ignoring you. Once I finish this set, we can chat. What? Well, what were you saying?
Noah! For dead weight, you're a right snuffing peacock. You slippery little mudder! What?
Well, anything else?
Snuffing weakling! Blast it all! Oh, you! Get it now! chance.
Break it up now. Didn't know you could be so petty, Garble.
Ain't got no time for this musclehead.
Wanna say that again?
We'll settle this properly in tomorrow's trial. Move it!
Damn. Ugh.
Don't let it get to you. Guys like that are the first ones to snuff it in a real battle.
No, I'm not worried about him. I really can't call my weapon bud. I worry I'll end up being a burden.
Never thought that here, not even once.
Thanks. Kind of you to say.
It's just the truth. Where are you going?
To visit Riku, since it broke. The trial, it's tomorrow. I'm gonna need a new weapon for that. What's this?
Magic sword, Lucky 7. In distant past were 7 legendary swordsmith pop. Over course of 7 years, forged sword from 7 types of steel. No other sword like it in existing.
Magic? Lucky 7?
Let's. Pleased to give good cleave with blade and split clean in halves.
Sure about that? Better not pull some you break it, you bought it sneaky sort of deal.
Riku would never dream. Just put all of heft into mighty swing.
Weird ask. Sure. You want me to cut it? I'll cut it, I guess. Here it comes.
Damn.
Queen's beans. There's not even a nick in it.
Friend surprise. Indeed, it's most prized of swords. Even armor of Piranus gets sliced to itsy bits.
I think I'll pass.
Pass? So you not have need for?
Yeah, it's too strong.
Know when Lance and friends to kick buckets?
No, what the spark?
Same as letting friends die.
No, it's
Liz, strong sword, indeed. Yeah, that's a strong sword.
If friends not fight, cannot survive.
sure, but I don't need to use your sword.
Then, why Noah not call blade?
It's not out of choice, I just can't.
False. Riku see through like transparent. Noah can call blade. Just no big desire of fighting spirit.
Riku? Hey, is he serious? Noah? What the? All this time? Huh?
If death is not option, should live. Only way is fight like life depends. Thinking of self alone is way of coward. Though, Riku no feeling well.
I'm afraid.
Of fighting, you mean?
Of this world. It's so brutal and relentless. And I'm afraid of what we might become.
Mate.
Ho ho ho! Riku knew Noah was hero material.
Huh?
It true this sword possess incredible power. Might even rob enemies of many much lives, yes. But only those who understand nature of terror have right to wield. Quoth Master upon of Riku anyhow. So, if Noah can call blade now, can still keep Lucky 7, maybe in some kind of disguise. In different words, can turn it into sheath.
Sheath?
Can use it in fights like normal. But if ever push come to shove, time will come when Noah truly need Lucky 7's strength. Then is only matter of drawing.
When I truly need its strength.
Exact. If Noah never lose sight of that feeling, one day such time surely come.
That is, if I can master it.
If Felt's a master, just give back. Can pick out different money.
Ah, right.
Please not to feel specially indebted to Riku. Just take. No need for overthinkings.
Okay, I accept your offer. Oh, and Riku,
What is?
mind if I change the name?
Me?
Lucky 7 just isn't doing it for me.
Ah.
Okay. What's my switcher? 100%. What cat? Cat. Yeah, hi.
So, what name did you end up picking?
Huh? Name.
Uh-huh. You don't want to say? Or what? Is it that embarrassing?
No, it's not embarrassing. That's not it.
There's Lynn.
I'm getting strong emotional vibes here.
I wouldn't say emotional, per se. Rather, something I miss. Yeah. You know, you're the second one that's noticed this weapon.
Really? Is that something special?
It is.
And the first? Who is it?
She's incredible. And we owe her our lives.
Silvercoat Ethel, I think he's talking about. Oh, this is Silvercoat Ethel's base, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, that's Silvercoat Ethel. But she's got the red eye right now. That means she's under Mobius's control. So she's evil right now. We're going to have to snap her out of it.
Being the first major country to have some sort of social security, national pension, and minimum welfare state, and FDR being the founder of the New Deal,
Hello,
which radically
Izzy.
changed the economic.
Hello, Izzy. Wait, is that what that says? Does that say Izzy? Oh, it does say Izzy. Nice. Welcome to the stream, Izzy. I used to work with a girl named Isabel. We called her Izzy. Yeah, she was pretty cool.
Relationship between individuals and their government in the United States of America. So these people were the first ones to be aware of how much of their status really was at risk if they did not pacify the masses. So let's also look at what are the goals that old money wants out of the political system. They don't really need any direct handouts themselves. So their goals are a little bit different. And they don't really need the government to improve competition and infrastructure to allow the emergence of new businesses or new technologies or innovations, because new technology and new innovation historically are disruptive and they challenge the status quo that they're already at the top of. So what old money people want are mainly three things. Two, they want the removal of competition. Like, there's nothing worse to old money people than new money competing with them for their spots at the country club or their relative status in society. The third thing that old money wants is they want the cost of living a life of leisure to be as low as possible for their peers, but also prohibitive for newer people to have it as well. And the way you do that is having some sort of slave or mercenary class at the bottom of the social hierarchy. And if you look at the history of civilization, really the ancient times to now the modern era, there's always been some bottom slave / mercenary class who has either been literally bonded to the nobility, or in the modern day, since we thankfully eliminated chattel slavery in that system, it's more people being forced or compelled into conditions where they work below the cost of living or below subsistence in order to keep costs down for the elites. This explains why you'd see a lot of the old money elite tends to be in favor of high levels of low-skilled immigration, because that keeps the costs of their servants or other people who help them maintain their lifestyle. And since they're rich and can isolate themselves, they don't have to deal with the social consequences of such a policy. And this has been not just a modern phenomenon. I mean, if you look at ancient Rome, you had 35% of the population be slaves. And if you look at most medieval and early modern societies, there was some form of slavery or serfdom, and that is kind of helps in keep the upper nobility entrenched in power, and they can do it and maintain their life of leisure at a cost that is below what it would be if it was truly fair and free competition. The other side to this coin too is their middle classes and the native lower classes who get frustrated with such a system. They have no loyalty to the top of the hierarchy, whether it's the king or the emperor or the establishment political party, because they feel like this is a raw deal for them. And so this often also extends to the elites importing a mercenary class who will fight their wars for them or be the enforcers against civil disobedience and dissent. We've seen this, for example, with the Germanic barbarians being the bulk of the Praetorian Guard for the Romans, the early Islamic caliphates importing the Turks to be their enforcer class and mercenary class, the Byzantines doing it with the Slavs, and you can argue that's kind of what's going on in modern times in the West to a certain degree. If you can't get your own people to support your political causes or your current status hierarchy, you'll import people who will vote for to preserve the status quo. I'm not really going into whether this is right or wrong, but if you look at history, usually these so-called enforcer classes often many times become the elites themselves because they realize they're the ones holding the power because they're the ones enforcing the current hierarchy. But in terms of economic interest, that's part 3, why they would want to have the slave class. But in terms of explaining the other 2 parts, preventing competition and preserving stability. Stability is obvious. If you have civil wars or if you have a lot of unrest and disruption, and then it's going to be harder to live a comfortable life. Also, if you have too free of an economy or too low regulations, and you have new businesses coming in all the time being competitors to your existing business, or a new technology that puts your source of wealth on the line from becoming obsolete, then you know what? You don't want that. Like, progress and innovation is actually a threat to old money. Like, look at an example. Say if you have a family who's made all of their money in drilling for oil, and we come up with some miracle fusion engine that you don't need to ever have gasoline again. You can have all these electric cars, and the batteries are so good that you can go 1,000 miles on a charge. And you have the fusion for the power plants, and there's also discover some alternative chemical that can make a lot of the plastics. Let's say there's no more use for oil due to technological innovations. Well, this old money family whose wealth is built on owning oil wells are all of a sudden going to be in the poorhouse, and they don't like that. They'd rather have regulations prevent those technologies from either being invented in the first place or being implemented into the market for commercialization very slowly, if not ever. It's not just oil too. Let's just say, for example, the technology advanced to the point where you could build skyscrapers that are hundreds of stories for half the cost. Then if you built your whole career on, say, owning low-rise apartments in a certain city, you're a threat, because now these high-rises are going to be built cheaper and they're going to make rents lower, so your income is going to go down. So instead, you'd want to pass restrictions on construction and development so that nobody else can build apartment buildings, so that your old money family who owns all the currently constructed apartment buildings gets to keep their source of wealth without competition. So this is why old money would generally be pro-business regulation, because it keeps out new entrants. And even if your business is not directly affected by a new technology, let's just say there's a new innovation or some new business that is successful, and this founder accumulates a lot of money and gets rich. Well, you know what? You're going to now have to deal with somebody who's going to compete with buying houses in your neighborhood and potentially pricing you out of your neighborhood, or pricing you out of your memberships to your private clubs, or enter your exclusive groups that you don't really want new entrants in. And that's a social threat to you. Or they may exceed you in net worth, and therefore they may have more influence in terms of politics or the broad culture. And as a result, your relative power, even if your absolute power is still there and your absolute wealth is still there, your relative status drops. And so this explains why a lot of old money support progressive taxation, is because they've already made their money. So they're not really hurt by progressive taxation nearly as much. Whereas anybody who is an up-and-comer who is trying to move up in the world, they are hurt because they're going to have to give a big chunk of their earnings and wealth to the government as they move up, and it may prevent them from moving up to begin with because they won't be able to compound the same amount of wealth that the previous generations were able to do. And that, along with the regulatory barriers to entry, keep new money competition out of old money circles. So that's why you can see a lot of these progressive economic policies actually serve the interests of old money. The main enemy of old money is not the poor. In fact, they often have a paternalistic relationship with the poor because they feel like, since they're the stewards of society, because they've been the ones who've been on the top for the longest, that they're kind of in a paternalistic way responsible for the lower classes. The real enemy of the old money is the middle class and potential new money. If you have a generous enough of a safety net that people are comfortable, and or middle paying jobs that are comfortable enough that people can have the basic comforts without a need to rebel, but they don't pay enough that people can accumulate savings to build capital, to create businesses, or their own forms of influence to challenge the current social hierarchy, that's the ideal. This is what's going on in Europe. Due to the generous social safety nets and high taxes, you have a social hierarchy that effectively has the old money elites and the political class, and then below that you have most people, which are, from American standards, would be lower middle class, and a few who are dependent on the state. And there's really not much mobility between those groups. You're either in the middle class group, who's really kind of going to be born there or die there, or you're going to be in the old money group. They have, through this generosity of the safety net, eliminated really the abject poverty bottom of the group, and at the same time they've cut off new money. So, and that's the trade-off that those societies have made, and the old money likes that because their status is not going to be challenged. Their wealth is not going to be challenged. In America, however, due to just a different history and a different culture, never fully enacted a social safety net and a progressive tax system strong enough to have the same incentive structure as in Europe. So we still have a challenger class in this country. And what a lot of the elites on the left, and why the old money elites often support them, want to work together to basically eliminate this challenger class. A lot of the left think, oh, there's income here that can be used for my progressive causes. And the old money elites like, wait, great, we can cut these people at the knees, and we'll never really have anybody challenge our money status or power. And so that's why they cooperate, because one, they also can feel good that they're doing a good thing and clean up some of their guilt for being rich by saying, hey, look, we're not going to let any more people join our club and make a more equal society for the rest of us. And that is, I think, a primary reason why you see old money, at least on economic reasons, side with the left, is because it prevents any sort of new money or counter elite threatening their existing position. So overall, why old money supports the left? It's mainly just to protect their relative status, and as maybe whether it's intentional or unintentional, the consequences of a lot of left-wing economic policies is what it does is it entrenches those who are already at the top at the expense of emerging wealth, new money, or disruptive entrepreneurs shaking up the system. The thing that's interesting, though, is that AI technology might be shifting this. It might actually be the first technology that doesn't really create a threat to old money, but might solidify their status. And I'm going to talk more about this in a future video about how class warfare has evolved in the 21st century and what direction it is likely to go. Feel free to comment or like this or subscribe.
Interesting. Very interesting. I agree, though. I agree. Oh, YouTube and their ad blockers, huh? Alright, let's switch accounts. There we go. Screw the YouTube ad blocker. YouTube has an ad blocker.
All right, but it's my class, the rich class. That's making war, and we're winning. Warren Buffett.
Welcome to Analyzing Finance with Nick. We're going back to the old money topic because it seems to have hit a nerve with the audience here. And instead of doing a specific question about old money, their allegiances, why they operate the way they do, I think it's more important this time to zoom out and just explain really just the history of class warfare and what is class warfare going to look like in the 21st century, and why recent technological developments are going to drastically shift how the class hierarchy is constructed all over the world. In the pre-modern era, the class structure was pretty simple. You had an old money ruling class who had gained their position by force, usually conquest. You had an enforcer class. In the example, this would be like knights in the medieval era. And the job of the enforcer class is really to hold down the vast majority of the population, which were either in the slave class or the peasants or serfs or whatever you want to call them, but they're the people who are either undercompensated or not compensated at all to do the bulk of the work that kept the economy and the food supply growing. And then you have free citizens, which I guess the closest thing to this would be the middle class in today's society, or people who were not tied to a piece of land or to the debts of the wealthy. They're usually skilled artisans or proto-professional jobs, or the clergy, or others who just weren't really tied to the previous system but still participated in the system and had relative autonomy, but their numbers were very small and they were so far away from the halls of power that they really didn't have a chance to move up. And in all honesty, since they just were less organized and communication technology was limited, you had a lot of rogues outside the system, whether it's just bandits or marauders or traveling salesmen or whatever. They just didn't really participate in the classic class structure, nomadic peoples, and they were in the periphery of the civilization, and they kind of just lived outside the system. They could cause disruptions in the short term through violent interference with the civilization, but they were either, in the long run, either assimilated in or pushed aside. And that's really how, up until basically the French Revolution, how most class structures worked across the world. Then you started to have revolutions where, due to the advancement in weapons technology and literacy, the lower classes had more access to power and more direct ways to threaten the established elite, especially violently. And so as a result, this old pre-modern structure fell apart. And what effectively replaced it was one of two solutions. First, you had more class warfare between the lower classes, where you had the elites split into two sides, and you would have one align their interests with the middle class, and one side of elites align themselves with the working and lower classes. And in this class conflict between the middle class and the working class allowed these groups to fight amongst each other and distract the fact that the hierarchy still remains relatively intact. This is kind of how the American social hierarchy worked, I would say, from the American Revolution up until the fall of the Berlin Wall. The old world, on the other hand, either stayed in the pre-modern framework or switched to either the authoritarian framework, which I discussed in a previous video, or the European style class hierarchy, which I also discussed in a previous video, which basically used a combination of high progressive taxation and a high social safety net to create a relatively high floor of standard of living to pacify most of the population into a very large lower middle class that lives comfortably and is generally satisfied with their lives, but at the same time really has no means to move up into the elite. Some emerging markets who are in the process of democratizing are kind of in a transitional phase between the pre-modern class model and the American or European class models, and they're kind of ironing out the challenges of that, and I did a video about that one too. However, really, the thing that's the game changer, it's going to change all of these, is the development of robotics and AI technology that has really started to accelerate, starting with the release of ChatGPT at the end of December 2022, and the development of Mobile Aloha by Google on the humanoid robot side to do a lot of physical, domestic, and other types of physical labor that's going to be replaced by machines. And the thing is that what makes this a game changer is not necessarily that the robots are going to immediately replace everybody, and that could not be other possibly jobs created, like, such example, people to maintain the robots. However, there now is a path to do that very thing. And if you are the old money and the upper tiers of the system, and you do not need people anymore to do the work and keep the economy running and all of your goods and services operating, then the relationship between the classes changes drastically. The main issue that the old money and the established and elite are always afraid of is being overthrown by the lower classes. However, they still need the lower classes because who's going to do the work that keeps society running? And so this tension, whether to maintain position versus keeping the lower classes satisfied enough that they do not rebel and still participate in the system, is the balancing act that societies have had to do really since agriculture created settled societies. Now, however, with technology can replace both the white collar middle classes and the working classes that do more physical work, that social contract and that balancing act no longer needs to be balanced. Within a few generations, you can replace most of the work. You may not be able to replace everything, and you still need people to innovate and advance, but if you want to have a stable society with no threat of rebellion, you get rid of that threat by replacing all the people with machines. But it will be a step-by-step basis. Like, it's not going to be overnight. Let's say the first generation, 20 years from now, when you have AI and robotics get to a competent level, what would the class structure eventually evolve in? The first step would be just the removal of mobility. That's why there's more gaps in these charts than the previous ones. You will have the old money and the politicians still at the top, like the European model. However, instead of the lower middle class, you're going to have the dependent class, which are people whose jobs have been disrupted away from robotics and AI. And then you have the bottom of the hierarchy, which will be the robots and the AI doing all the work. The dependent class will be collecting a portion of the economy, whether it's through machine taxes or income taxes on the elites, to pay for the subsistence of the dependent class. And through and that is really how it would be in the first generation. You'll get them comfortable enough, again, not to rebel, but given the fact that most economic opportunity is really going to not be there, it's hard to
Can
get
you
on the
go to
ladder.
the nether?
Every entry-level
I
job
could, yeah.
is done by a machine, and eventually as AI develops, most advanced jobs will also be done by the machine. So really, if you're a business owner, you'll have AI doing most of what you need to do. You just have to sign a few things on DocuSign every day, and that will allow the old money to live their lives at leisure, while at the same time having a more direct control and operation of the means of production. Then you have to look into the next one, the end generation. If you just keeps going, you're going to basically have the dependent class is basically going to go extinct, I mean, however, everybody's gonna participate in this. There will be rogues outside the system who either build their own independent communities or just kind of drift around, but are not large enough in numbers to threaten the existing hierarchy. I mean, this is going to take several generations, and if you look at current demographic trends and technological advancement, this is really the scenario that you could eventually get. And one thing that's scary is it looks very similar to the pre-modern hierarchy that I mentioned before, except without the enforcers, because you won't really need to have physical enforcers to enforce the robots. They will do what they're supposed to do via hard-coded instructions. So am I saying that AI in 20 years is going to basically turn everybody into welfare dependents and gradually die out? No. This is probably going to be a 200-year process. However, if I was the old money, and if my goal was to maintain power and eliminate challenges yet still maintain my life of luxury, the best way to do that is not to continue the class conflict. The way to win the class war is to replace the lower classes with technology and make them obsolete and outcompeted by technological selection, for a lack of a better term. I know this sounds a little bit crazy, but that could be the end game, and that is the dark side, possibly, of the advancement of AI technology. Those who are in the counter classes and the challenger classes are going to be increasingly challenged on how to stay relevant, and if they can't stay relevant in other ways, or AI's development is a lot further away than many people anticipate, instead of this being a 1 to 200 year process, this could be a 3 to 500 year process, or maybe some other game-changing technologies to space travel or other major innovations that will provide a role for people beyond what the AI can do. The implications are staggering. And the other really thing is, let's just say, what if the technology becomes like any other enforcer class and eventually rebels against the old money masters? Maybe that's why we haven't really had contact with alien life. Those are my thoughts on this. Now let me know what you think. Is AI really going to be the nail in the coffin that kills the middle and lower classes? Is it going to be the killer app that ultimately allows old money and established elites to win the millennia-long class war? Or are there some elements that I'm missing? Or as
Kirby games? Oh no, I don't got any Kirby games. I don't know, I got a bunch of games, but no Kirby. I got BioShock 2. It's an old fun game. Of course I got Zelda Breath of the Wild. Got Diablo 3. Borderlands 2, Skyrim. Yeah. Check out my hours. Got 5 hours on Doki Doki. I got 125 hours on Minecraft, 70 hours on Diablo, 105 on Xenoblade, 2,180 on YouTube, 180 hours or more on Brilliant Diamond, 210 hours on Pokemon Violet, 65 hours on Let's Go Eevee, 155 hours on Skyrim, 75 hours on Borderlands 2, 1 hour on Pokemon Home, 5 hours on Mario Odyssey, 30 hours on Immortals Phoenix Rising, 210 hours on Pokemon Legends Arceus, 20 hours on BioShock Remastered, 105 hours on Borderlands, 35 hours on Sid Meier's Civilization, 70 hours on Breath of the Wild, 20 hours on Pokemon Tournament, and then 420 hours on Fortnite. That was my little cousins. That was my little cousins. They had my account for a little while. I've only played a little bit of Fortnite on the Switch. It's kind of laggy on the Switch. I love Zelda games. Yeah, true. Zelda's pretty fun. Yeah, Zelda's fun. Gonna watch some anime here. I need to find a new anime. To find a new one. I've already seen Demon Slayer. I've already seen Soul Eater. I've already seen it years ago, like 10 years ago I watched it. My unique skill makes me OP even at level 1. Interesting, huh? This website's better than Crunchyroll and it's free. You don't have to pay. You get every single anime and it's better than Crunchyroll. I love this website. With ad blocker, I don't get any ads. One Piece, that's too long. One Piece is a really long anime. My unique skill makes me OP even at level 1. Alright, I'm gonna watch this. Watch the dub. I don't like watching sub. But yeah, My Hero Academia is pretty cool. But I've already seen it. I think season 7's new, so I haven't seen season 7. But I'm not gonna watch season 7 right now. But yeah, I can't watch this on stream or else I'll get a copyright. So take care, Izzy. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you. Have a good night.